Hi everyone, welcome to Tier 1 Jank. I'm Leslie, and I am here to show you a really janky one today. Normally Marcus is the jank master, but I'm really excited about this one. It's got a really neat combo in it that I want to share with you today. I'm glad you're watching. I hope you like, comment, and enjoy. I'm going to get started on our deck tech though. So, first thing I want to talk about, I like to kind of divide my decks up into what they do. That's how I have a weird mind, so it just kind of helps me to divide out what I'm expecting my deck to do and then put things in that accomplish that. So this deck I really wanted to be really powerful. So Carnage Tyrant is going to be our main man of the show here. 3 copies in there. If you're not familiar with Carnage Tyrant, he definitely is a tyrant. It's a 6-drop, and he has trample, hexproof, and the spell can't be countered, and he's a 7/6, so he's a pretty big guy. Again, we've got 3 copies in there. I also have, and you'd be surprised, I have a little guy called Crawl Harpooner. I like this one because he's a 2-drop, but he comes in at an above body curve, or an above curve body, so he's a 3/2 for that 2-drop. He also has reach and a really cool ability. So when he enters the battlefield, he has undergrowth, which is going to give him +X+O until end of turn for each creature that's in the graveyard. And then you can basically have it deal damage or fight a creature with flying that your opponent controls. So that works really great for some control and doing some creature removal too. So I really like this guy. I've got 3 copies of him in there. Our next kind of powerhouse in this is Captain Lannery Storm, and again, do not be surprised by her small body. She can really hit the power. This is a 3-drop with haste. She's a legendary creature, so I do only have 3 copies of her in here. I want to hit her pretty frequently when I'm playing, but I didn't want to run 4 of her just because she is legendary. So she has haste. And every time she attacks, she creates a colorless treasure artifact token. Those are the ones that when you sacrifice, it adds mana of any color to your pool. But the cool thing about her is when you sacrifice a treasure, she also gets 1/0 till end of turn. So you can definitely get some big value off of her. And sometimes even just sacking those treasures will really make her power add up. I also have a copy of Vraska, Relic Seeker, in here. Find her here. This is a card that at first might seem like it doesn't really belong in here. I do only have 1 copy, but what I really like about Vraska is she makes a time clock on the board. So basically my opponent has 3 turns to win, or their life total is going to be 1 and they're going to be getting hit with something. So I do only have 1 copy of her in here. I'll talk about her a little later because she helps with some other things in the deck. But I want to move on to Angrath. He's our other kind of power in the deck here. So this guy might not be like my creatures hitting for a lot of power, but he's really doing a lot for me when he comes out. So he's either getting rid of a card, making my opponent lose some life, or he's letting me do like a creature capture and grab one of my opponent's creatures. And I'll show you in a little bit how that can be really helpful and really cool in the deck. And then last but not least, for some more power, I've got Domri in here. He not only boosts my creatures up when he's out, but can also help with some board state control. So targeting a creature that my opponent controls and fighting it with one of mine. So that really helps to keep some control on the board. What's that? Okay, so moving on. That's the Jank Master. But he taught me everything I know. Okay, so moving on. I want to talk about the value. So far we've got some power, we've got some value. In a second, we're going to talk about some control. So where I really get a lot of value out of this deck, I want to start with Radha, Grand Warlord Radha. She's a beast. She comes in, she has haste. She has a 4-drop, 3/4, so pretty good stats for a 4-drop. But the real value that I get out of her is being able to play more after my attack phase. So I can completely tap out to play her, swing in with a couple of creatures, and still have enough mana left to play something else. So I like having her in the deck for that. It really gives me a lot of mana ramp. And she tends to be kind of a target for people too. They don't like to see her on the board. I think that they're kind of afraid of that additional mana as an advantage for me. So I do have 2 copies of her in here. She is really great value, but she's not the most important piece of the deck. So I only have a couple copies of her. Okay, so next value piece is Incubation Druid. I actually subbed these in for Lana War Elves for a little while, but I really like the kind of consistency of Lana War Elves. So I do have 3 of those in the deck still, and I have 2 Incubation Druids because this really gives us some more mana value here. And I've got another card in here, Courage of Crisis, that works great with this. So this helps with a couple of things in the deck, but one thing that it can do is I can target Incubation Druid with that ability, add that 1/1 counter onto her, and then I can tap her for mana of any type that a land I control produces, but I get 3 instead of 1, and that's a lot cheaper than that adapt cost, which is 5, and then I get 3 1/1 counters on her. I'm not so much worried about the power on her, I'm more worried about the value I get out of her from that mana. So that Courage in Crisis works really great. I do only have 2 copies of her, again, because I think Lana War Elves is so consistent, especially early game. And this doesn't really add any power to the board for me a lot of times. So just 2 copies. Okay, so our next value piece is Saheeli. This is one of the new Planeswalkers from War of the Spark. I'm so excited about this little combo that I do with her. I'll tell you about it in a minute here. So Saheeli, Sublime Artificer, is a 3-drop. I know that you can use blue to play her, but you can also just use red. So I have her in here. And she's great for kind of adding some creatures to my board. And that's part of the reason why I have some of these other cards in here as well. So anytime you cast a non-creature spell, she's going to make a 1/1 colorless servo artifact. And you can neg to her to turn that artifact into another creature, an artifact that you control. So my next value piece that kind of goes along with her is Samit, Tyrant Smasher. So again, this is another Planeswalker from War of the Spark I'm super excited about. She is amazing. She gives all my creatures haste, and then I also can use her to kind of add some power. So here we go, talking about power again. Add some power to a creature. I like the whole gains haste thing in here too. I know a lot of people have talked about that it's like double haste, but if you think about it, that's really great in like a 2-headed giant or something like that too, because it's not specific to just your creatures. So it does have some relevance. But anyways, side note, getting back to the really cool stuff. I also get to scry one when I do that with her, which sometimes can be really important. Okay, so those 2 are kind of my secret weapon. I'm going to go through those in just a second here. I want to talk a little bit about some of that control that I have built into the deck. So I've talked a little bit about Crawl Harpooner. This guy is really great. I feel like he kind of becomes like a weapon that I use to get rid of some of those creatures that I don't have the answer to always in here. So your Lyras, your Niv Mizzets, anything like that. So if I have a couple creatures in the graveyard, in my graveyard, it comes out, adds a little bit of power to him. I can target that item, get rid of it, and then swing in with something else that I really want to swing in with and get through. I also have a couple of copies of Assassin's Trophy in here. I like other removal better. I don't like that my opponent gets kind of an advantage with having some extra mana and thinning out their deck a little bit, but I do like that this gets in early and gets rid of something. And with the way that this deck is set up, sometimes that's really important to get rid of something that can become a big threat. Give me enough time to build up my my board state and then swing in for a lot. So I have 2 copies of that in here. This is also helpful because there's not a lot in here that's going to be helpful against like enchantments. So this gives me a little bit of enchantment removal. I can target some planeswalkers that can come out early and just, again, get that threat off the board really early. And the other thing is, we'll talk a minute here about the ramp. I'm not super worried about them getting that extra mana because hopefully I'm going to be building up a lot of mana resource pretty quickly. But that is one of the downsides to it. Okay, so some other control in here. I have 2 copies of Bedouble. I like this because it's a little bit cheaper than Vraska's Contempt. I know it doesn't exile, but it does give me a little bit of flexibility in what I can target. So artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers, and I only have to pay 3 for it. So I do like that. So I've got a couple of copies of those in here. And then 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt. I just don't think you can beat the value that you get off of this. Sometimes it's so important to exile, especially with a lot of the creatures that can do damage when they're sacrificed or when they die or go to the graveyard. And this helps to stop a lot of that too. And I want to make sure that I'm not doing something that's going to somehow hinder myself or one of my creatures from being able to stay alive and on the board. What's up?
As well as things like Adonto Vanguard that can get indestructible.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So Marcus said that this is also really helpful against things that have indestructible. So like your Adonto Vanguards, things like that. The one thing that this is not as great against now are the God Eternals, because the exiling doesn't help with that. However, if you can get it off the board for even just a moment, it can be really helpful in this. Note on the Adonto Vanguard though, sometimes when I'm playing against a white deck with Adonto Vanguard, I actually like to target that Adonto Vanguard because people tend to early on not care about taking a life. And with this deck especially, so if I can swing in and they will take 4 life to give it indestructible, sometimes that'll give me just enough edge that once I get my board state set up, I can swing in for what isn't a ton, but a lot, and just take care of it then. So that's really helpful too. Okay, so next piece of control is Domri. I do only have 1 copy in here. You'll notice I have just 1 copy of a couple of the planeswalkers, just because they're not always necessary. They do help in a lot of ways, but I don't always need a Domri, for example. So again, this is just kind of some creature removal. I like that -2. One of my creatures fights one of my opponent's creatures. A lot of times I can get rid of it. It's really cool when I have like a Crawl Harpooner coming out. I can choose to not target the one with flying. It's still like super big, but then I can target something else that might be bigger on the ground with that Domri out. He also is really helpful again because he kind of adds some power to the board with that +1/+0 from my creatures. And he gives me a little bit extra mana too. I like this against control decks as well, because if I can get this guy to land, which sometimes by turn 3 you can do that, I can get a Crawl Harpooner out and get it to stay. Or something like that, like one of my Incubation Druids or Lana War Elves. It's really helpful. Next piece of control is Angrath. I talked about this a little bit. The kind of the power here is his control ability. So getting rid of cards from my opponent's hand, having them lose 2 life at the same time, which is cool. I think that that is one of the best +1s on a planeswalker. But I also like that he can help me to kind of do a creature capture, so that if I'm swinging in with something big, I'm not having to worry about getting blocked by something big and that power not getting through. So now not only do they not have something to block with, but I'm using that power against them. And I have some neat ways too that he can be used. So we'll talk about that in a second though, because it has to do with my combo. That's really cool. It's a nifty combo. I've got one last piece of control in here, and that again is Vraska. So I talked earlier about how she's a 1 of and doesn't quite seem to fit in I guess you could say at first look, but really she does help a lot. So first off, again, she's a time clock. She makes it so that my opponent has to do something quickly or something bad's going to happen, which I kind of want. But she adds a little bit of that flexibility and removal for me. So enchantment removal, a creature that's kind of difficult to deal with, like Niv Mizzets. I love this against Niv Mizzet because you play this, which usually if they're tapping 6 to play a Niv Mizzet, I'm going to have 6 that I can play Vraska. But this doesn't trigger Niv. So I get a Vraska out, I destroy him, I get a treasure. They didn't get any value off of Niv, and I have a treasure that I can use for something else later. So she's really helpful there. I also like that she can add some bodies to the board to help protect my stuff. So if I want to just swing in with my Carnage Tyrants, I can leave my Pirates on the board to help block and keep my Planeswalkers alive. And then, of course, that ultimate control, having the ability to suck the life out of my opponents all the way down to 1. And she and Angrath together are amazing because I can do that, even if I have to get rid of her to do it. But then immediately after that, do a +1 because that's not going to get rid of Angrath, and deal 2 points of damage, and that can take care of it sometimes too. It doesn't happen as often in this deck as a couple of the other decks I have them in together, but I just can't beat that combo. So they both are in here. Okay, so now we're getting to the nifty combo because I know that that's what you're waiting for, and I'm waiting for it too. So I talked about Saheeli and Samut being kind of my secret weapons, and I love being able to get a Saheeli out on turn 2 because of my mana abilities to do that. Get a Samut out on turn 3, which triggers Saheeli to make a servo, and then typically I can get a Carnage Tyrant out pretty soon after that. So if I've been able to play another Lana War Elf, or if I've got a Captain Lannery Storm out and I'm getting some treasures, I've built up usually by turn 4 or 5 enough to get a Carnage Tyrant out. So that comes out. It's going to have haste from Samut. I take that servo that I just made from casting Samut, turn it into a Carnage Tyrant. It also is able to swing in. And then I can neg 1 Samut, add some power to one of them, and then swing in with both. And it's amazing. It's a lot of damage coming at them all at once and really early on in the game. Not to mention both of those creatures have hexproof and trample. So any kind of blockers or anything, it's still going to run over them. On top of that, let's say I get my Carnage Tyrant out and they put a big threat out on the board that I want to get rid of. I can hold my Carnage Tyrant back, turn that artifact into a Carnage Tyrant, swing in with that one so I don't lose my big guy here. And since he has hexproof, a lot of times they can't target him. So here I've just got servos that I can swing in with a couple of times after they've been turned into a Carnage Tyrant and take care of whatever I need to. Something really cool, just kind of flavor-wise, not flavor card-wise, but just my flavor-wise. I remember Marcus was telling me about some of the storyline with Ixalan and Watley and Saheeli, and they were talking about the possibility of using Saheeli's kind of artifacts to make dinosaurs out of artifacts, and I totally did it with this deck, and it's amazing. So I turn Saheeli's artifacts into a Carnage Tyrant and literally make carnage. It's just awesome. It's awesome. You should try it sometime. Okay, so let's get on to some other really cool things that are neat here. Just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, so of course we want to be able to get to this, and we want to get to it early. So I talked a little bit about the ramp that we've got, some 3 Lana War Elves, 3 Lana War Elves, 2 of the Incubation Druids, again, having that Courage and Crisis out, or being able to cast that, add that +1 counter here is going to help us get that mana out pretty quickly. Additionally, I have 2 Grow from the Ashes. I like this one in particular as opposed to other forms of ramp because a lot of times I can get up to that kicker cost pretty quick, and those 2 basic lands come in untapped. So not only can I play this, get a couple extra lands on the board for later, but then immediately can use it to play an Incubation Druid, Crawl Harpooner, if I need to, an Assassin's Trophy. And then those two are also going to trigger Saheeli if she's out, so that's really helpful as well. Let's see. Oh, my Captain Lannery Storm, of course, that's going to add some ramp too with those treasures. So every time she's attacking, I'm getting one. There's sometimes that I'll even just attack with her so I can get a 6th one so that next turn I can play my Carnage Tyrant. So a lot of times what I do is I'm going turn 2, playing Captain Lannery Storm, getting a treasure. Next turn I'm playing Saheeli, getting another treasure. Next turn I'm playing Samet, playing my Carl Harpooner. He's getting really big. He can come in for haste, and I've had enough mana to do all of that by like turn 4, turn 5. It's really cool. I also have a few copies of Pirate's Pillage in here. I started off with 2 in here, but I did end up, I actually ended up dropping from 3 Samets down to 2 and having 3 Pirate's Pillage because I found it was really hard to get to some of those pieces. I don't have any other card draw in here really. So those 3 Pirates Pillages are really helpful, and again I get a lot of value off of those too, because not only do I get to draw 2 cards, but I get 2 treasures, which are some ramp, and could also be really helpful if, say, Saheeli isn't on the board and my servos either never got created or aren't there anymore. This will give me an artifact that I can use later, so if all I can do is get a Saheeli out, I've got an artifact on the board I can already use with her neg. So that's really cool too. Okay, what else do we have in here? Oh, of course, Radha. We have Radha in here for ramp. Let me find her here, Warlord Radha. So, and this is a card too that I feel like when I first started playing her, because I kind of play her in my main deck, and this is how I'm going to change my main deck up. A lot of people really underestimated her. It was really neat to be able to swing in with just some small creatures, do a little bit of damage, get it through, but then immediately be able to play a Carnage Tyrant because of that mana I was able to produce from them. Sometimes in the process I was able to get rid of a couple creatures on my opponent's side, which was really helpful, and definitely made Carnage Tyrant's power even more powerful because then there wasn't anything that was keeping that trample from going through. So I really like her in the deck with Carnage Tyrant. I think that she really just makes him that much more powerful. Okay, so those are kind of the elements of the deck. So we've got power, we've got value, we've got some control in here. It's very mid-rangey for sure. We've got that nifty little combo that tends to kind of sneak up on people. And we've got the ramp to help get us there. Some things that will help with that Saheeli trigger, of course, any of our removal cards, so Assassin's Trophy, Bedevil, but also that Courage in Crisis, which is also really helpful when we have those Planeswalkers out. So I can trigger Saheeli to get my servo, use that to add that +1 counter to my Incubation Druid, or even the servo if I really need to, and then in the process proliferate and add some counters to my Planeswalkers, help keep them alive for a little bit longer. So those are it's really helpful in the deck for that. I talked a little bit about Pirate's Pillage and how that treasure is really helpful with Saheeli as well. Let's see. And then the Planeswalkers cards, of course, yes, those 2 will trigger Saheeli. So we talked about that a little bit with Samet. So if I play Saheeli, next turn play Samet, I get a trigger off that, so I immediately have a little bit of value from that. But of course the other Planeswalkers cards that are in here will trigger that as well, which can be really helpful. Additionally, like let's say just by chance somebody was able to control all of those creatures, throwing a Vraska down is really nice if I've got Saheeli because her pirates have menace. So if I really need to, I can turn those servos into one of these 2/2 black pirates with menace and sometimes get some damage through that way, be able to save my pirate token back as a blocker, and be able to get a little bit more damage through that way, especially if they've only got 1 creature on the other side. So some other cool things that I've been able to do with this. So Angrath here is such a cool dude. I once was able to snag and do a creature capture with a 6/6 demon on my opponent's side of the board, and if you think about that, Saheeli's being able to turn an artifact into that, like not only did I steal theirs, but I could have totally turned one of my own artifacts into what their thing was, and then because it was a token, be able to get rid of it. I also like Angrath because sometimes if you've got, like for example, a Niv Mizzet, I've been able to take a Niv Mizzet from my opponent's side of the board, copy it with Saheeli's ability on to a token, and then sack that Niv Mizzet. So getting rid of a legendary creature where I wouldn't have been able to get rid of it with Angrath's ability because it only sacrifices for 3 mana cost or less. Yes, dear. No? What?
Nothing.
Oh.
I don't know.
You can interrupt, it's okay.
I didn't have anything to say. I was just looking at stuff.
Okay. Let's see. I talked about Vraska and her ability to help with Niv, Lyra. Something else that's really popular right now, which I know Marcus runs too, is the, it's called Dreadhorde Invasion. It's the enchantment.
I will break in to say that
Okay.
although this may look a little unconventional to a lot of people, Leslie has been having a lot of success with this deck or similar version that she was running. I think you might have made a couple tweaks, but against a lot of the top tier decks. And a lot of people play very competitively at our LGS, and she's managed to do pretty well with this deck.
It is really cool. I think even before I made these tweaks, I mean, I've hit top 4 before with it, and that was out of quite a few people, so it does really well. But I think that Samet and Saheeli in it just add that much value. It's really crazy. Okay, so Dreadhorde Invasion, is that enchantment?
That is the black enchantment that makes
that does the amass at the beginning. Okay, so that's really popular right now. Again, I like my Vraska for that. I like the Assassin's Trophies for that because I can target those enchantments. Those are really the only enchantment removal I have in here too. So she really helps with that. And then the other thing that I really was
the problem enchantments you'll see around lately are things like Search for Escanta or Wilderness Reclamation.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Wilderness Reclamation for sure. I don't see Escanta as often anymore. I think I've seen more of a spike with it since War of the Spark release.
The main place we see it is in the Esper control decks.
Yeah. I feel like once everybody kind of gets... I feel like there's always this pattern where everyone wants to play blue in the beginning, and then eventually everybody shifts to red by the time we're about ready for the next set.
A lot of people shift to whatever has been doing well at the major tournaments.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're not really ones like that. We brew what we want to brew, but
we like the jank.
A lot of the more competitive players at the stores we play at, you'll find them switching to the most recent popular decks among the pros.
Yeah, we tend to stick with kind of more of these unconventional janky decks. That's what we like. So last thing I want to say before we...
We also have a moderate amount of success with them against tier 1 decks.
Yeah, so what he's saying is not only do we like jank, but we like jank that really works and has an impact. So we tend to try to brew decks that are actually competitive. You can use these in competitions and do really well. I think a lot of that too just depends on the meta in your area. So if you have an LGS that you go to, I wouldn't say to expect to be able to pick up this deck, put it together, and it work the same at your LGS as it does ours. This one doesn't always work. Sometimes we have people there that I'm not used to playing, and it doesn't work as well against them. Or I still kind of consider myself a little bit newer too. I'm getting to where I don't feel like so much of a novice, but sometimes I run into a deck that I'm not used to the mechanics in it, and so I just have to do a little bit of research. So I think that's really important. If you're into building decks, you want to do something that's a little bit kind of janky like this. Do your research, play the decks that people are playing in your LGS, figure out what things you need to put in. Again, that's why I like to set my decks up that way. I like to think, okay, so I'm coming up against a lot of decks that I need more power. So how do I add power and still get value out of that? So that's kind of how I think about building my decks. So there's a lot of different ways to do that though. It's just the way I do it. Okay, so last thing I want to go through And then I'm actually going to take this deck for a spin with you so you can kind of see how it works. But this Crawl Harpooner, he is somebody that is definitely underestimated. So this little bug, I tell you what, I've been able to do some crazy damage with this. So how this happened was I had, I didn't even need Sahelio. I had Sienna out. I just needed that haste. I had my board wiped. I remember this very vividly because I was so shocked at how well it worked. I had my board wiped, so all my creatures were gone. It was like a cleansing nova or something like that. Next turn, I played a Crawl Harpooner. I played I think a Grand Warlord Rod as well. I played this first because my idea was I wanted to try and get a counter spell. But literally, I only had 6 mana. That's all I had to play anything. Board was wiped, so Crawl Harpooner got so big so quickly, and I think that they were kind of expecting once they got rid of that Rada that I wouldn't have anything else that I could play. I don't think I had played one, but I played that, and he became a 10-2. They didn't have any other creatures on their board because they did a Cleansing Nova, and I was able to swing in for the win with it because of that haste from Siamet. Not to mention, I could have added the extra 2. I was so excited when I did it that I forgot to do it, but I didn't need to because that 10 damage it went through and did what it needed to. So that little buddy kind of becomes like a honey, I blew up the kids kind of thing, only with bugs, and can do a lot of damage for just a couple of mana. It's really incredible. So that's the deck. I'm going to get this wrapped up here, just going through the lands really quick. Obviously, I wanted to put in quite a few of our dual lands. So I have a couple of the shock lands in here so that if I really need to, I can play something that can come in untapped. I like having these in here too because a lot of times I can play one for my first land and then all of these other ones are going to come in untapped. So that's really cool. But I did want to keep a significant number of lands that were just basic lands in here for that Grow from the Ashes, because I wanted to be able to kind of mana fix and target those with that. So those are in here, so that rounds out the deck for you. We're going to take it for a spin here. I want to show you how it works. And hopefully we get a decent one here. I think the last couple of times I played this, I decided to let it sit for a bit because I was having to mulligan a lot. I kind of think it was a little tired. So hopefully we'll have a good land draw here. So this isn't too bad. I know there's only 2 in here. I do have the Assassin's Trophy, which will help with some control, a couple of small things. I think I'm going to go ahead and keep this, especially since I'm on the draw. And again, I really just kind of want to show you a little bit of the mechanics here. So I'm not super worried about winning on this one, even though I do like to win, not going to lie. So that was a good pull, that Incubation Druid, because we're going to be able to play that and have kind of that extra mana value that we're going to need for this. So I see we've got a green on our opponent's side here, so I wonder if we're going to be coming up against some other big creatures. Oh, there's another green. I have a feeling, so this is going to come in tapped, unfortunately. It's okay though. It's okay though. We're going to be able to get some mana value out there in a little bit here. I may actually play this guy first, just because it's going to get a 3-2 out on the field. But let's see what we get. We did get a land. I'm not going to be able to play both of them. Let's see, this Vivian's Grizzly. Okay, so some card advantage. I think I do just want to play this Crawl Harpooner here. I don't have enough quite yet to do that with Devil because I need that black, additional black mana, so that Incubation Druid for sure is going to be helpful. Coming up here soon. So even though this guy didn't get to have his trigger really do anything for me, it's okay because again, he's an above curve body. He can get rid of this Vivian's Grizzly, which is probably why they didn't swing in. Let's see, that's going to come in tapped because I don't have a swamp or a forest out, but that's okay. Let's see. I think I'm going to go ahead and get this one out now.
Yeah, you've done recording.
Still recording. I'm just doing a game really quick.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you need something?
I was just gonna check the time that you've been recording.
Oh, probably something good to check.
To the list
I don't know. Watch us find out that I haven't been recording this whole time.
No, you're recording.
Blanchwood armor.
I know we're listed when you're
My
streaming. I'm
Vivian's
sure it
Grid.
shows it while you're just doing a recording.
Okay, that's a lot coming through. I'm not gonna block it though. I got this Carnage Tyrant hand. I'm gonna see if I can get it out. And I can. So now he's not gonna be able to get rid of that. I can block. At 5, it's not gonna get rid of my Carnage Tyrant, so I'm not too worried about that one. Probably next turn what I'm gonna do is get rid of it though, and that way I can swing in for a little bit more here. I'd really like to see a Salmon or a Saheeli come out here though. What's up?
So, if you like Assassin's Trophy this, would that be the best thing to do?
Well,
Or Bedelved?
yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that Bedouble. I'm kind of liking this thing though. I almost want to say we do a Pirate's Pillage and see what we can draw. I can still use either of those removal pieces if I need to. We're going to get rid of that. Ooh, looky there. Yeah, but it's okay because I've got mana available. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one. And we're going to target that guy.
They use your druids.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to swing in with it anyways, and I'm not going to block with
I
it.
just thought I saw it have the treasure highlighted.
Actually, that's one of the features on this that I don't necessarily like. When this card dies, return to its owner's hand, draw a
I
card.
could be,
Okay.
and some advice to players on Arena, like be careful with your mana tapping. Always look at the lands it's going to tap. They are highlighted when you have the spell, when your cursor's on the spell, it'll highlight the lands that are going to be used. It does not always leave open the lands that you would want open afterwards to play other spells, so
Yeah.
be aware of that, and when you need to manually tap your own lands for mana, because you don't want it leaving you. Sometimes the choices it makes are really bad. It'll leave you open just your uncolored sources or things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it thinks it's making the best choice for you, but it doesn't always know exactly what you're going to play. And see, this is great that I have
There's
that
been
extra.
times where like the only one mana spell I had in my hand was an opt, and it will leave a red source open for me instead of a blue or something like that.
Oh, they got their own Carnage Tyrant. That's so funny. But I'm pretty sure that we are going to swing in for a win on this next one here. We definitely are now. We're going to get rid of Vivian. Just in case.
I mean, you could have got rid of one of those druids, and then that would have been 3 less damage, or 3 more damage.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, I see.
So either way, they're going to take 4 from Carnage Tyrant.
I didn't see what you're
That's okay. That's okay. I don't need to attack with this one. And that's it. Pretty nifty. I think I want to do one more just to see if I can get that little cool combo out.
I just wasn't sure how long we were recording you wanted to do.
Yeah, I really want him to see that Saheeli and Samet do their thing.
Oh, you're fine.
So it's
You're
hot.
fine. I just usually when I do mine, I'll do like a deck tech and then do gameplay
Yeah.
over it.
Figured I'm on a roll. I may as well keep going. So some things that we saw in there, obviously the Carnage Tyrants, always a good bet. and green decks. And I really like that this deck seems to be pretty consistent with my mana pulls too, because it's very rare that I can't play a Carnage Sharon on turn 6. Okay, so we've got 3 lands in this one. I have an Incubation Druid, some high cost stuff, but I'm not horribly worried about it again because I've got that Incubation Druid and I've already got 3 lands towards it. So that gives me a couple of turns to see if I can get something else out too that's going to help with some mana ramp. I'm going to get that forest out so that that woodland cemetery will come in untapped, and that way I can play my Incubation Druid this next turn. Perfect. So we're going to get that chick out there. And I like that I've got this little Samet here because if nothing else, we are going to get our Carnage Tyrant out in a couple of turns here, and he's going to have haste. Maybe not at that rate, though.
Guys, if you want to jump on our Patreon, I'm going to do something a little bit special this month. If anybody wants to, normally if you donate $1, you get a shout out. We do for $5.
Man, this
something.
person really doesn't like all these.
I think if you want to donate $5 for this month, I will do a deck tech for any deck that you would like to see. So if you want to donate to the Patreon, the link is on our banner. I'll try to put a link on the description for this video as well. And any deck you want to see, just give me the idea that you're thinking of. I will put the deck together. We may not have the cards to play it on the arena, but we'll be able to do a deck check for it. Normally we do $50. I'll actually play your deck on arena, and the reason for that is we may not have all the cards, and we may have to spend money on arena to do that.
But send us some stuff because we've got the new computer now. We definitely want to use it and show off all these cool decks.
Me even, I'd also like to offer something for direct challenges. Normally, I think that might have been the $10 one was direct challenge.
I think so. There was like a deck tech, a direct challenge.
You got a shout out. So I'll tell you what. For this month, if you want to do $1, I'll do a deck tech of a deck that you'd want to see. If you'd like to donate the $10, I'll do a direct challenge with you on the channel. And I can't really do too much on building the decks on arena for less than the guaranteed 50 because I won't know what cards that you have that you want to be played. If you have a deck that I'm actually able to put together, I could do it for a lower amount, but I wouldn't be able to know whether or not that's possible until I know the deck that you want played. It's possible I have the cards right now, and I would be willing to take a lower donation to play your deck on arena if that's the case. So if you guys do want one of your decks played, just let me know what it is, and I'll see what I have on arena, and I could maybe do that for a much lower donation.
Yeah. Again, we finally got the new computer. We mentioned it. I think it's been a while back now.
And the Patreon thing isn't that, we really want to get money out of you guys. We'd love to see a little bit of support from the community, but it's really to just justify spending all this money on the channel because we've really put a lot of money into being able to do this for you guys. And we're not expecting to, make a profit on this, especially not right away, but we would like to, at least justify getting a little something back to spend all the money to be able to do this for you guys. I do enjoy doing it. I'd like to continue doing it. Anything, even if you don't want to donate, if you just get the word out, share the channel, subscribe, leave us comments, everything helps.
I think the comments actually help more than people think because comments help the videos to come up earlier in the searches when people are searching for things. So that's really helpful. But I mean, we definitely want to show off your stuff too. So
I know everybody can't afford to send money, but just, even if you can just let us know what you think, give us your feedback. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us what we're doing good. Tell us what we're doing bad. Tell us what you'd like to see.
Yeah. Absolutely. We want to hear from you guys for sure. Okay.
And thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys. I'm gonna do one more. I just want to see if I can get that combo to fire off. But I won't keep you guys too long. I'll do one more here. We'll see if we can get it going. If not, I can always come back and try again. And in the meantime, like Marcus was saying, think about some decks that you want us to kind of show off for you, and we'll work on those too. Okay, I'm definitely going to keep this. We've got 3 lands. I've got some ramp. This is a really, really good hand. We can play everything early on. Oh, and this is a perfect deck against white. Tends to be one of the harder decks for this, not gonna lie. I think I'm actually gonna get this Rootbound Crag out, just so I know it's gonna be untapped when I go to play my Captain and my Lana War Elves. There's that Adanto Vanguard. That's where my Vraska's Contempt really helps. We got a Carnage Tyrant up. That's awesome. I'm going to get a Lana War Elves out now. And we're going to probably try to get rid of that Adanto Vanguard. Definitely. So these white decks, this was one of the reasons why I really worked on this deck too, because they come in with so much power and they gain so much life that I had to be faster and bigger, like pretty quickly. So we want to get rid of this guy right now. A lot of times, like I said, I would maybe bedevil that, see if I can get them to lower their life. But especially with that Legion's Landing out there, I don't want them to get another creature out, get that flipped, because they're going to get so much value off of that. So getting rid of Adanto Vanguard now is probably the best move. Holy moly. All right, let's see what we can do here. I don't think there's a lot that can do necessarily. I can try and get rid of one of these. Yeah, let's do it. We're gonna get some mana out of it at least and get a treasure. These white decks, they just come in so fast. So fast. And wide. I mean, look at how many creatures they had out so quickly. Definitely gonna get rid of that dude. Definitely getting rid of that dude. So my goal here is to try to get to a Vraska, because that's gonna be about the only way I'm gonna take care of that life total. Let's see. Of course, that's gonna create a body when it dies. I really don't think that there's gonna be much I can do with this. I can get an extra body with this if I do that and then play the Bedevil. That Carnage Tyrant isn't going to be able to block enough. So we're going to do that. I actually want to tap this first so that I know. I totally just hit the wrong thing though. Let's see if I can back that out. If you push Z, it'll let you back it out. I need a red source for that. And then I can play that. So I'm going to get an artifact. I don't think that's going to take everybody's life totals down enough for me to do anything though. Because he is still going to be able to come through with 4. So unfortunately, this one we didn't really get to see anything work. But you can see board state-wise how that could have gone with that Carnage Tyrant coming out. It's not going to have haste because Samet's not out, but I could have turned that servo into a Carnage Tyrant and swung in with that. Yeah, that guy, that one's going to do me in, unfortunately. Okay, next time though. So as a matter of fact, those white decks are kind of what really get me with this one. So if you have any ideas, suggestions for that, I definitely would appreciate your feedback on that as well. I've thought about putting in some widespread brutality in the sideboard just so I can, because kind of like turn 3 usually, I could use that. Um, get a body on the board, get rid of everything else because they tend to be a little bit smaller creatures. But I'm thinking that that would be enough to kind of give me a head start. So thoughts that you have, uh, very much appreciate them. Again, if you'll like the video for us, give us a comment, let us know how we're doing. We would definitely love a share, and be sure to subscribe and check out Patreon and throw a little love our way if you can. So thanks for letting me get a little bit of some jank going on with you today. I really appreciate it. Have a good night, guys.